India's northern state of Haryana is voting for assembly elections. In this multi-party competition, polling began at 7 a.m. local time and will close at 6 p.m. local time. Votes will be counted on October 8th. The election is a crucial test for all parties. The ruling BJP is pulling out all stops to stay in power for a third term. Haryana Chief Minister and BJP contestant, he hit out at Congress after casting his vote, saying that Congress's poll promises are not concrete. On the other hand, the opposition Congress party is eyeing a return to power after 10 years. Meanwhile, the Aam Aadmi Party is looking to strengthen its presence and see some of its power spill over into the state that shares borders with the national capital. Well, over 20 million people are eligible to exercise their franchise for 90 assembly constituencies in the state. According to election officials, more than 20,600 polling booths have been set up across the 90 constituencies in Haryana. Voters casting the ballot have a long list of choices. There are 1,031 contestants in the fray, out of which 930 are men and 101 are women. And well, for more on the assembly elections in Haryana, our correspondent Dharamjot Kaur is joining us live from Rohtak in Haryana. Hi Dharamjot, like I mentioned, 90 assembly seats are up for grabs in Haryana. A short while ago, you said that the mood is electrifying there. What has the voter turnout been like so far?
Well, Raisha, I think we're about 3-4 hours in now. The voter turnout is touching around 10%. So we still have a lot of hours ahead. We have voting going on till about 7 p.m. in the evening. So a lot of time for voters in Haryana to still show up. It's always been a trend, Raisha, in all the elections that we've seen so far, that we have a spurt of voter percentage early in the morning and then more people turn up later in the evening. So there will be a bit of a lull that we might see starting now till late afternoon. That's not something really alarming. It's usually been the trend in all elections that we have seen so far. Haryana in general historically has voted pretty much at par with what the national average of elections really has been, even though we heard earlier Prime Minister Narendra Modi tweet about urging voters in Haryana to come out in a record number and cast their ballot. So it remains to be seen if that happens, or if if any level of voter apathy or any frustration, any of the simmering issues, they stop voters, or they make voters hesitant to come out and vote in case they think that they don't have enough choices, or they don't feel convinced enough by any of the parties. Again, as the day ends, that is something that will be made clear by then, Raisha.
Dharamjot, while it is a tight race between the Congress and the BJP, while the BJP is eyeing for a consecutive third term, Congress hopes to make a comeback. What are some of the key battlegrounds to look out for?
Well, Raisha, I have to be honest with you, the entire state for this particular election is a battleground and not just a few constituencies, and I'll tell you why. For 20 years, we've talked about this here, for 20 years, Haryana has been very predictable in the way it's voted in state assemblies. It's always been in tandem with who is at the centre. So if the Congress was at the centre, the Haryana people have always voted in favour of the Congress. When the BJP is in the centre now since 2014, the past two elections we've seen voters in Haryana voting for the Bharatiya Janata Party. But this time there are a lot of factors, Raisha. There is a wave of anti-incumbency. There are a lot of unaddressed issues for the people of Haryana. And this is particularly because it's a very interesting state, Raisha. Not only do we see clear fault lines in terms of caste and ethnicities, there's also an overlap in terms of occupational identities of people in Haryana. So while there's a very clear Jat and non-Jat divide in terms of who these two groups support or who they're against in terms of their political allegiances, a lot of times there are very blurring lines, because the key occupation in the state of Haryana is farming, as we've discussed before. And issues related to the agriculture sector have been making headlines since 3 or 4 years now. So that is a factor that is going to play a key role in terms of how this particular election turns out. And the reason why it is so critical is because not only is it at a high stakes election for BJP or Congress or other parties in terms of who rules the state, but it's also a very critical tone setting for all parties for the upcoming Delhi election, let's not forget the proximity of Haryana to the national capital, which is why we see the Aam Aadmi Party also trying very hard to make its presence known in this state so that they can see some of that spillover effect in the national capital too when elections are held in February, Resha.
Right, Dharamjot, we'll also have to see if the farmers' protest, like you mentioned, and the wrestlers' issue will have any effect on the outcome in the state assembly elections in Haryana. But thank you for joining us on the show with your insights. We'll of course be tracking the results very closely with you.